So about 10 months ago, JADe put out a video on our channel discussing whether the MCU takes place in Earth 616 or Earth 1999-99. But we have received so much more information about the multiverse since that point that I had to readdress the topic. And after Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse has just come out, I just had to talk about, with all the new information we have about the multiverse, does his theory still hold? And looking at everything, I feel like there are two explanations that we can look to right now that can cause everyone to be correct and that it all still work in unison together. And so today I want to talk about those two possibilities. First, let's look at where the MCU is referred to as 616 versus 1999-99 to just compare the two and see which ones are reliable and which ones are not. First off, 616. We see the MCU referred to as such in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man Far From Home, Loki, and Thor the Dark World. Now, first off, I feel like we can throw out Spider-Man Far From Home because turns out Quentin Beck was a con man. So anything that he says, we really can't take as a universal truth. He most likely found the writings of Dr. Eric Selvig and discovered that he was referring to a 616 universe, and so he took that name because it fit with the narrative he wanted to tell. So I think we can throw that out. I also think we can throw out what we see in Loki. Now in Loki it comes up when Loki is watching a summary of his life in the course that it was meant to take. And at the end of that film reel, we see that that reel that he watched was denoted as E616. The thing is, we don't know for sure that he was watching the MCU. I mean, it certainly looked like he was watching just all the MCU movies back to back, at least the ones that contained himself, but we don't know that that's the one he was watching. So it could be that he was watching Earth 616's timeline, but that's not the MCU's timeline. Since it doesn't say that it's the MCU, we can throw that one out as well. But that still leaves Thor the Dark World, where Dr. Eric Selvig, after having the Tesseract blast knowledge through his brain, writes 616 universe on his chalkboard. It's possible he wasn't saying that he's in Earth 616. The thing is, he got all the knowledge blasted through, and in his mind there was some very important significance to 616 universe. So I feel like the most logical explanation there is that he was seeing a way of denoting his Earth as being part of the 616 universe. So I think there's some merit to that point. We also see it in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where Christine Palmer talks about how she allocated Doctor Strange's universe as Earth 616. Well, that is also a very reliable source. She has clearly been studying the multiverse, and she came to the conclusion that it's Earth 616. So we have two reliable sources that agree with each other. Okay, let's look at what refers to it as 1999-99. Now, the first point is actually a book that was released by Marvel back in 2008, and it's the official listing of the multiverse. It officially talks about all the different universes that are out there and what's contained therein. And in that one, it lists Earth 1999-99 as the one in Iron Man, the movie that had just come out. Well, that is part of the MCU. And so that is a pretty reliable thing. It says official right there in the name. It's a reliable source that says that it would be Earth 1999-99. And now we also see it in Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, where Miguel O'Hara is looking at these different universes, and he says, don't even get me started on what happened with Doctor Strange and that nerd in Earth 1999-99. He's talking about what we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home, where they accidentally combined people, pulled people from different universes into one, and they tried to get them back. So that is also a reliable source. It is the leader of an organization that is tracking the different universes in the multiverse. And he labels that Earth as Earth 1999-99. So that leaves us with two reliable sources in both directions. So how can they possibly coincide and make sense together? Well, in JADe's video that he put out, he talks about the idea of an Omniverse. And if you want to go back and watch that video, go ahead and click on the link at the top. But basically a summary, we live on Earth, and our Earth is contained within our universe. And this universe would be one of many in the multiverse. Well, he takes it a step further, and he says that there are multiple multiverses, all contained in this Marvel Omniverse. The thing about this is, this theory still holds water, and can actually fit with everything we've seen thus far. Now he talks about that is evidence that we can have an Earth 616 in the MCU, which is part of that multiverse in the Omniverse. And then we can have a Marvel Comics 616 Earth that is contained within that multiverse. And so that's his way of explaining that we can have two 616s and they can both correspond. But I think with the evidence we have now, we can actually take it a step further. If you are looking at labeling different multiverses, different universes within a multiverse, you probably have some reference point. For example, if we were to change the names of our planets, instead of giving them names, we were to give them number allocations, where would we start? We would most likely set a point and reference that point in our numbering system. So we can look at the sun, and we can label our planets as the distance from the sun. The closest planet is planet 1, the second closest is planet 2, Earth is planet 3, and we extend out from there. If we're looking at a planet in a different solar system, well, we can continue that numbering system out. That might be planet 734, because it's the 734th planet away from our sun. The thing is, that's in a different system. If they were to put a numbering system on, they could use their sun as the reference point. And so that planet might be our 734, but it could be their planet 3. Well, we have a planet 3, and they could have a planet 3, because we have a different point of reference. The way that works is then we could be Earth 6, or the MCU can be Earth 616 in one multiverse, because they are measuring it from some reference point in the middle of their multiverse. Whereas the Marvel Comics 616 can be a 616 as well, because it has some reference point in the middle of their multiverse. And extending that out, if we take their reference point, the comics reference point, and we extend that all the way out to the MCU, it could be number 1999-99 from their reference point. The result being, if there is multiple multiverses in an omniverse, each multiverse can have their own numbering system, which leaves the MCU as both 616 in their multiverse and 1999-99 compared to another multiverse. Well, let's look at where these numbers are referenced. Does this hold up? Where do we see 616? In Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, a live-action movie. In Thor: The Dark World, live action. In Loki, live action. In Spider-Man Far From Home, live action. So all the live action movies are referencing it as 616. Well, where do we see 1999-99? We see it in a book that is predominantly referencing the comic storylines. A comic book reference. And now we see it in Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, an animated movie. We see a very distinct separation here. In the live-action human-like areas, there's a multiverse that has the rules and the image of people that look like we look. But then we also have this animated comic book type of multiverse with their own set of rules and how people are displayed in that multiverse. And we know that they're not just animated in Across the Spider-Verse because it's a movie and that's how they're representing people. We know that that's actually how they look. Because in Across the Spider-Verse, we get glimpses of other universes where we see humans, live-action humans. We actually see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. We see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. We see human beings from the point of view of that universe, which tells us that is not just an animation. That is actually how they look. And so that lends credence to the idea that there is an animated multiverse, and there is a human multiverse. But there's also another way that we can look at this. If you accept the idea that there could be different numbering systems, well then this works out. The idea of multiple multiverses within an omniverse can explain that. But if you don't accept that, if you feel like there has to be one numbering system to explain it all away, there's also a way that that can work out, where everyone can still be right, even if you can only have one possible numbering system for each universe. And that is the idea that we could actually be watching two different universes within the MCU. If you look at where it's referenced by 616, it starts in Thor: The Dark World. That's the earliest reference we see. And all these movies that we see take place after that point. We see 1999-99, that book came out and it referenced Iron Man. But is there a difference between Iron Man 1 and future movies that can hint at the idea that they're actually in different universes? Well, yes, Rhodey. We have a different actor play Rhodey in the first Iron Man than what we see in Iron Man's 2 and on. We also see in the first Hulk movie, we see a different actor playing Bruce Banner in the first Hulk versus in the Avengers and on. Now you could say this is just a casting change, but we see different actors playing the same character as being related as in different universes in these other movies. Spider-Man No Way Home, we see multiple Peter Parkers played by multiple different actors. And they're different Peter Parkers from different universes. This can be the same situation in the MCU. We see different Bruce Banners because we're actually looking at different universes. The universe that we see in the first Hulk movie and the first Iron Man movie can actually be a different universe than what we see in the future, in Thor the Dark World, in the Avengers, in these future movies. Well, let's look at this. 616 only refers to movies with our current Bruce Banner and Rhodey. Whereas the first few movies with Iron Man 1 and Thor 1, where we see a different actor playing those roles, that could actually be 1999-99. That book is not saying the MCU as a whole is all 1999-99. It says Iron Man. The Iron Man movie is 1999-99. And it could be the case. We see 1999-99 at the beginning, and then the MCU seems to shift to 616. It could be because we are shifting to a similar but different universe. And when Miguel O'Hara references 1999-99 as the universe that he is seeing, it could be that he's not actually seeing Spider-Man No Way Home that we watched. It could be that he's referencing a similar universe where the same thing happened. In that universe that we see in the first Iron Man and the first Hulk movie, that universe continues on. We stopped watching because we are now watching 616. But Miguel O'Hara could be watching that one. And with both universes being set off by very similar events, their timelines can be very similar. And so the same situation in Spider-Man No Way Home could have happened in that universe. And that could be what Miguel O'Hara is referencing. So there are two different possibilities where everyone can be right, and it can still work out. Let me know what you think. Do you think this makes sense? Do you think these possibilities are both options? Which one do you like better? Do you like the idea of a Marvel Omniverse with a separate MCU live action type of people and a separate animated type of people? Or do you like the idea that there is just one universe designation for every universe, and we are actually seeing a change partway through the MCU, where we watched one universe at the beginning and we're watching a new one now? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching.